It's hard to imagine that a human being could be so evil and malicious that they would be sentenced to death 16 times over for their crimes. But such a man did exist, and his name was Ronald Gene Simmons. Welcome to Enter the Dark. Hello and welcome to Enter the Dark. I am Jan from Film Daddy. With me as ever is Les from Tales from the Hanged Man. Les, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. Hello everyone.
Today's story is all about Ronald Gene Simmons. Now, you'd not heard of him, had you?
No, he's a new one on me.
I'd heard bits about him, but let's go over it all now because, it's quite a weird one. This is sentenced to death 16 times over.
16 times. I mean, it kind of seems redundant after two.
It does after one, really.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Born on the 15th of July 1940 in Chicago, Illinois, Simmons was an army brat. His stepfather was a civil engineer in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which led the family moving around the state of Arkansas. Following in the footsteps of the man who raised him, Simmons dropped out of school at 17 and enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He was first stationed in Washington, where he met a woman named Becky Ulibarri. Nearly 3 years later, the young couple wed. The pair would have 7 children over the next 18 years.
Oh.
So, your TV thing, not applicable, is it?
No.
Nothing to do. People just like to have kids.
So it's almost like that's what we're meant to do, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Simmons briefly left the Navy for 2 years before deciding to re-enlist in the Air Force. He retired in 1979, sporting a sterling 20-year military career that featured medals and honours for distinguished service.
Oh.
So, he's a good soldier, this guy.
Yeah, look at him go.
Yeah. His courage and dedication to his country make what happened next even stranger. He fell under criminal investigation on tips and allegations that he had fathered a child with his own 17-year-old daughter.
Oh.
Reports indicated that he'd been sexually abusing her for at least 2 years prior to the pregnancy. Fearing prosecution, Simmons relocated the family to a secluded plot of land in Ward, Arkansas. He created 2 makeshift trailer homes for his large family to live in. The property was desolate, isolated, with no phone and no plumbing, and was surrounded by a tall, makeshift fence. The remote location showed the kind of parent Simmons was. Harsh and exacting. Their final task before their death was to dig a 4-foot deep ditch in the yard, which Simmons told them was for an outhouse. Despite the fresh start, Simmons' life continued down a nasty path. He was unable to hold down a job as he became a steadily increasing alcoholic. Ultimately, a series of reported inappropriate sexual advances effectively ended his professional career. Becky, Simmons' wife, hated her husband. She prayed for hours every day and encouraged her children to do the same. She told the children they must find God in order not to meet their father in hell. Come December 1987, she had finally had enough. She decided to leave and intended on keeping the kids and grandchildren away from Simmons. "I don't want to live the rest of my life with Dad. I'm a prisoner here and the kids too," Simmons' wife had written to their son shortly before their murders. "Every time I think of freedom, I want out as soon as possible." Before she could do so, Simmons discovered her plans. In response, he decided he must kill his entire family. It is unknown whether the decision stemmed from a growing desire for incest, hurt at being abandoned, or was simply a psychopath finally snapping. Regardless, on December the 22nd, 1987, he went on a rampage that resulted in America's largest family mass murder. Simmons began by shooting his wife and eldest son, Gene, in the head. Shortly afterwards, he strangled his 3-year-old granddaughter, Barbara, to death. He then dumped the 3 bodies into a cesspit that he made his children dig a few weeks prior. After disposing of the bodies, he cracked open a beer, marvelling at the Christmas lights hanging from his mobile home.
Oh my God.
When more of his children arrived later that day, he told them that he had a present for everybody, but the present was one that he needed to show to each of them individually. Simmons first took his 17-year-old daughter, Loretta, out back. But there was no gift. Instead, he drowned her by holding her head underwater in a rain barrel. 3 of his other children eagerly awaited their surprise Christmas gift inside the trailer home. One by one, Ronald Simmons brought his children out back, murdering each one in the same manner as the last. 4 days passed before the rest of the family was scheduled to arrive on December the 26th. The first to arrive that day was his son Billy and his wife Renata, who were both promptly shot upon entering the home. Their 20-month-old son Trey was then strangled to death by his grandfather. Lastly, Sheila, the daughter he had abused and impregnated, was shot and killed alongside her husband. Their 2 children, one of which was fathered by Simmons himself, were murdered by strangulation. Simmons laid the bodies of his family in neat tidy rows inside his trailer home in the lounge area. After murdering 14 of his relatives, Simmons headed down to the local bar for a drink. He returned later that night, apparently oblivious or at least indifferent to the giant indoor graveyard that he'd created. He spent the rest of that evening and the following day drinking beer and watching TV, enjoying the holiday season surrounded by the family. On December the 28th, Simmons ventured out of the house to go on another killing spree. It started at a local law office where he killed the receptionist named Kathy Kendrick. He had fallen for Kendrick, but she repeatedly rejected the much older man's advances. Next, he killed a man who he had no connection to, named J.D. Chaffin, before shooting and wounding 3 more people at the local business. His shooting spree ended at Woodline Motor Freight Company, the same business where he had been accused of inappropriate sexual conduct. He entered the building and shot 1 woman, severely wounding her. He then chatted calmly with the secretary and waited for police to arrive and surrendered without resistance. Simmons was charged and convicted of 16 counts of murder. He refused to appeal his death sentence, infamously saying, "To those who oppose the death penalty, in my particular case, anything short of death would be cruel and an unusual punishment." He offered up no explanation for his murder spree, nor displayed a single shred of remorse. He seemingly welcomed death, making statements that he wanted nobody to file appeals on his behalf, even stating, "It is further respectfully requested that this sentence be carried out expeditiously." During his 3 years in prison, he had to be kept in solitary confinement. Repeated threats were made against his life by other death row inmates. They were angry that he refused to file an appeal of his sentence, feeling it potentially damaged their chances of winning their own appeals. On the 31st of May 1990, the governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton, signed Simmons' execution warrant. The father from hell died by his chosen method of lethal injection. None of his surviving relatives claimed the body.
Wow.
You've got a man there who's a 20-year veteran in the army, not like being kicked out of the army.
Navy, wasn't it?
Navy and Air Force. He's not dishonorably discharged, anything like that. He was retired, he's got medals, he's got everything. And then it just started to go south, taking his family away after impregnating his own daughter. And then when his wife rightly wanted to leave, he killed his entire family.
I mean, do you think, again, here I go, trying to rationalise things. I mean, this man, I don't like diagnosing, but clearly a psychopath.
Yeah, something snapped in him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the snapping point was when his wife wanted to leave.
Do you think it could be anything to do with, like, in the army, he was regimented and he had rules?
I think so.
And then when he came out, he could do what he wanted.
He could. I don't even think it's that he could do what he wanted. I think that it's probably due to the fact that everything was so regimented and everything was controlled, and I'm guessing to a certain extent he didn't have to worry about the control aspect. Yeah. Then he finds himself in civilian life, and he then becomes the one in control. It said itself, everything was regimented and austere. Yeah. And then as soon as... That's the lack of control there, isn't it? When his wife has said she's going to leave, that's the breaking point, because then he's like, well, I can't control this.
Yeah.
This is completely going against the strict regime that I've put in place. So that must have been the point where it's like, well, they're not going to do it my way. Everybody needs to die.
Yeah, so I think it's probably why he started drinking a lot. And, people spearing his advances. He was like, why wouldn't they want me? Kind of thing. But, you know, even though he probably did snap at his wife when his wife wanted to leave, he'd still fathered a child with his daughter at this point.
Yeah.
So, you know, something was wrong with him. But, guys, please let us know what you think there. Do you think is a snapping point for him? Was there anything that you think contributed to it? Please let us know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Listen to us everywhere you can get us on podcasts. Watch us on YouTube. I'm Jan from filmdaddy.com. This is Les from Tales from the Hanged Man. We shall see you soon.
See you soon, guys.